Our character is basically a composite of our habits. Because they are consistent, often unconscious patterns, they constantly, daily express our character. Stephen Covey. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intentional Leader Podcast. I'm Cal and we are on episode 61. I'm pumped to have you here. We are all about helping you lead yourself, helping you inspire other people, and helping you make the world a better place, one person at a time. We release a new episode every 2 weeks, and I hope that this can be a community to help you stay focused and to help you find inspiration in an often challenging world. I hope I don't sound too weird this morning. I am dying from allergies. I live in North Carolina and the pollen is out and I am struggling. Thankfully, you can't see me because my eyes are red. My daughter just brought me some Kleenexes. It's my sweet, just now 7-year-old hooking me up. But I hope you're doing well. Hopefully you are in a part of the country or part of the world where you are not experiencing what I am. Or maybe you're just immune. Like some of these folks I see, I'm like, man, I wish I was like you right now. But hey, I hope you're doing well. I want to give a special thank you to all of you that have shared this podcast with a friend, who have taken a few minutes to rate or review this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Because of your constant support, we continue to experience amazing growth, which is exciting because it allows us to impact more people. And that's what it's all about. And I think we have some meaningful content to offer you today, some very meaningful content today, and some awesome content that I think will really add value to you throughout the year. Today's episode is brought to you by Higher Echelon Incorporated. Higher Echelon is a leadership development and organizational performance consulting firm providing human capital and technology services to optimize your performance. Higher Echelon can help prepare your organization to meet the rapidly changing, complex, and often ambiguous requirements of today's world by developing resilient and adaptive leaders, modernizing and enhancing your processes, and implementing transformational technology solutions. Go visit higherechelon.com to connect with the amazing team at Higher Echelon, including Dr. Joe Ross, and learn more about how they can help you and your team. Don't do it alone. I remember, now we're in April of 2021, which blows my mind, but I remember the beginning of the year, excited about my goals, ready to accomplish them. And it's tough. It's tough when life gets busy. Your team, its leadership is tough. So go seek the help of people who do this for a living, who consult for a living, who can bring the science behind high performance and organizational health to your team. Go check out Higher Echelon. They're a great team. Today, I am extremely excited to bring you my conversation with retired 4-star General Joseph Votel. He is amazing. I've admired General Votel from a distance for years, and it was really incredible to get to sit down with him for an hour to pick his brain on life and leadership. And despite everything that he's accomplished and continues to accomplish, he was incredibly humble, down to earth, and approachable, which is always nice. You know, you admire someone from afar, but then you get to meet them and spend some time with them. And I was blown away by the leader that he is. He really gives us a masterclass on this episode on organizational leadership and personal management from over 40 years of experience. He currently serves as the president and CEO of Business Executives for National Security, BENS, which is a national nonprofit composed of senior business and industry leaders who volunteer their time and expertise to assist the U.S. national security community. Before retiring from the military, General Votel served as the commander of Central Command, which you'll hear us refer to as CENTCOM throughout this conversation. As the commander of Central Command, he led the fight against the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, which you've heard as ISIS or ISIL, and this rose to prominence back in 2014. During his time in command, they saw the territorial collapse of the Islamic State in Syria. He also commanded the U.S. Special Operations Command, also known as SOCOM, and he commanded the Joint Special Operations Command, Command, which you'll hear us refer to that as JSOC. And if that's not enough cool stuff, he also commanded the 75th Ranger Regiment during Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. In 2001, as the commander of the Ranger Regiment, he jumped out of a perfectly good airplane with 200 Rangers towards an airfield south of Kandahar in an operation known as an Operation Rhino and attacked several Taliban targets. On this episode, we cover a lot of ground. We discuss the leaders that he admires the most, some of the most important leadership lessons that he's learned from working with people like Secretary Jim Mattis, General Retired Stanley McChrystal, and Admiral William McRaven, what he looks for most when he's hiring someone to join his team or his organization, what is most unique about the special operations community that he's worked with for so long, how he stayed sharp for over 40 years in his career, and we get into a lightning round of questions at the end, which is a lot of fun. For show notes, go visit my website, calwalters.me. Reach out to me and let me know what resonates with you, and I'll be sure to pass it on. Without any further ado, please enjoy this conversation with the incredible leader, General Joseph Votel.
Well, General Votel, thank you so much, sir, for making the time to be here today. I'm really excited to have you on.
Cal, it's great to be with you. Thanks for the invitation.
It's such a privilege to talk to someone who has such a tremendous amount of leadership experience, decades in the military at the highest levels, especially of the special operations community under high pressure situations. We're going to unpack a lot of that today, but I'd love to start by just asking you about some of the leaders that you admire the most. I mean, obviously you've seen a lot of leaders, you've learned, I'm sure, from a lot of leaders. Who are some leaders that just really stand out to you as you think about kind of the epitome of leadership?
So it's a great question, and I think about it a lot. And I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with guys like Secretary Mattis and Stan McChrystal and Bill McRaven, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about them a little bit later here. But you're really influenced by lots of people. So I would share three individuals with you who had a pretty huge impact on me as a military officer and as a person. And first and foremost is a gentleman by the name of Command Sergeant Major retired Bill Thetford. Bill was my Command Sergeant Major from the time I was at JSOC all the way through the time I retired as a CENTCOM commander. We were actually together for 8 years, which is actually longer than the average American marriage, if you can believe that. But Bill, Bill is a longtime veteran of the special operations community and served in a lot of our special mission units. But he exudes this calm, collected, easy-mannered, well-reasoned approach to leadership and interaction with the people that he's around. He just was wonderful to be around. He was just a real trusted partner for me as we navigated a lot of several different commands and a lot of different situations. So Bill is certainly right up at the top of the list. Secondly, I would say the person that I followed in this position where I am right now at Business Executives for National Security was a gentleman by the name of Norty Schwartz. And he's a retired Air Force general, and he was a former chief of staff of the Air Force. And so I never actually served under his command. We served in similar organizations at the various times here. But I came to know him. And what I really appreciated about him was just kind of this very humble, noble, civil tone that he took to everything that he was doing. He was a real role model for not only for me, but for generations of officers who, at times of turbulence, could look to him as kind of a beacon of how you should conduct yourself going through these things. So Norty is right up there. And the last person I would throw into this stack here is my wife, Michelle. And she never served in the military, but she is a leader in every way. And she has a very unique ability to be hard when she needs to be hard. And she can put a boot in your rear, or she can be soft when she needs to be soft. And that's an acquired skill, I think. And she's very empathetic. She gets along with people. She has a way of fitting into and being comfortable in every situation that she finds herself, and she oftentimes, is the formal or informal leader in most of the groups in which she is. And so, I think you get your inspiration from a lot of different places, and certainly those three individuals have had a pretty profound impact on me.
That's so great. I'd like to ask you about Michelle. So if you think about your leadership style and the leadership approach that you take, how do you think Michelle has influenced your leadership style the most?
Well, I think she has a direct manner about her, which I really appreciate, and I think that's very, very good. She doesn't. She is quick to confront things and highlight where people are off, or where there's problems, or more importantly, where you need to put some focus. So I've really appreciated that with her, and while I would never, she wasn't a member of the chain of command or anything like that, but she traveled often with me, particularly in the later part of my career, and she was certainly around families a lot and spouses, and she really played this important role. We always talk about the directed telescope, the idea of somebody down there kind of looking at things for you and giving you a perspective on it. And to some extent, she played that role for me in kind of understanding the other aspects of the organizations that we were part of, and she kept me very level. She kept those in the organization very, very level. And I think played a really, really important role as we pursued our mission and the objectives of the different organizations that we were part of.
You mentioned being direct with people, and I think sometimes that's something that me personally that I struggle with because I'm a little bit more of a peacemaker, and sometimes I'm worried about hurting people's feelings. How important do you think it is for leaders to have that willingness to be direct with people?
I mean, I think it is important. People don't like conflict. They don't want to. Nobody wants to be in tension-filled relationships or activities all the time. I mean, that's wearing down and it's frustrating and it works against what you're trying to do. But it's part of it's the nature of leadership. And I think what I learned from my wife, what I've observed from many others, is that in many cases you do have to address problems or areas of friction quickly, and you have to try to work through it and get to the other side. And I think oftentimes that just requires being a little bit more direct. One of the things that General McChrystal shared with me when he was a regimental commander, Ranger regimental commander, I was one of the battalion commanders, and we were in a discussion about this one time, and he just said, sometimes you just have to tell people. You just have to tell people what you want. You have to be direct with them, so they're not guessing about what does this guy want me to do. Just be direct. Don't let people guess about what you want or what your expectations are, and you can cut through. And it doesn't mean you have to be controversial. You have to be in your face. I mean, there's different ways you can do that, and you can, you have to exhibit some emotional intelligence and understand the setting, and recognize that at the other end of this, you and this other person, or you and this other organization, actually have to move forward, and so you have to think about it with a long-term view. But I do think developing an approach to being direct and trying to confront problems, I think, is an important skill for all leaders, and the one that I think takes a lifetime to develop.
Yeah, and I do think mature people in an organization appreciate not having to guess. I think people who want to work hard, want to contribute, they just appreciate, hey, tell me what you expect and give me clarity around the mission and the vision, and I will go and contribute. I do think that's critical to success. So you mentioned General McChrystal, and I wanted to ask you about a few of these leaders that you spent some time with. You mentioned interacting with General McChrystal at the Ranger Regiment. I wonder if you could just kind of tell us a little bit what was kind of the extent of that relationship, and then maybe one thing that maybe stands out to you most about General McChrystal as a leader.
So I've known Stan McChrystal for an awful long time, but when, as I mentioned earlier, he was the regimental commander and I was the first battalion commander, and so we had regular daily interaction, and of course he was a huge influence on everything that organization did, and then I had opportunities to work for him later on, or support him when he was at JSOC or when he was in Afghanistan or other things where we worked for him. So I have a lot of experience experience with him. But, you know, the thing that I really learned and appreciated about Stan McChrystal is his ability to transform organizations and not just take bad organizations and make them better, but to take really great organizations and make them even greater. You know, when you know, he had this thing in the Ranger Regiment, you know, at the time, and I think they probably still have something similar to this. You know, things, everybody has to put their little tweak on things as we move on. But you know, he got us all focused on what he referred to as the big four. You know, hey, there's four things we're going to focus on here in the Ranger Regiment, and they're basics. But our goal is to master these things. You know, it's, you know, marksmanship, fitness, medical skills, and small unit tactics, small unit drills. And his belief was if we could just master these things, this would give us the base for the organization. And it had a transformational effect on the organization. It cut out a lot of extemporaneous stuff people were doing, and everybody focused on this. And we really became experts with it. And you saw how the organization just got better. I mean, it wasn't just going to the range to qualify on your weapon. It was really being skilled, and you know, introduction of stress shoots and all those types of things to really make people confident and competent in the things that they were doing. And it had a transformational effect on the organization. And again, later as the JSOC commander, he took an organization that is, you know, really well resourced, well peopled, has a great mission and a lot of support, and did very, very well at that. But he transformed it for what the nation needed at the time, which was, you know, kind of this exquisite network to defeat a network. And he was able to do that in his own time, in the time that he was in charge. And of course, it had not only a transformational effect on the organization, but it had a transformational effect on the Army and the whole joint force. Everybody thinks like that now. Everybody thinks, yeah, you know, the enemy's got a network, we got to have a network kind of thing. And all the stuff that he brought to that, it just, I think, is just absolutely critical. So this ability to transform organizations, I think, is really the skill that I one of the many skills that I appreciate about Stan McChrystal.
What do you think? How do you think he did that? I mean, obviously, do you think he just had a higher? Would he read more than other people? Did he spend more time thinking? I mean, what do you think allowed him to maybe see that ability to transform an organization where others hadn't before?
Well, you know, I think he did all those things you just cited. I mean, he's obviously a student of the discipline, and so he did all the work that you would expect in that. But I think what he did, I think he looked at the idea of relevance, and that you can't sit on your laurels. That if organizations don't continue to grow, then they plateau, and eventually you begin to decline, and you become less relevant. And so I think that's what he was really. I don't know. I've never really actually had this discussion with him, but I really think that that's what it was. Is that this was about organizational growth and being relevant to the situation that we were in. The whole thing with JSOC, I mean, it's great to have this exquisite capability that you use for very unique missions, but the situation at the time required something different. It required an organization that didn't just that's not our mission set here, we don't do that, there's other people who do that. It required an organization that was all in and really went after the network, these terrorists that we were dealing with in both Afghanistan and Iraq at the time. And so he saw the need, he saw the importance for relevance, he saw the need for continued growth. And so that was the first thing. And then I think he was an inclusive leader, and he sought input from the people that worked for him and that were below him, and they saw what he was trying to do, and he brought them into it. So at the same time he's driving things from the top, he's also bringing people along from the bottom and making them feel very included in the solution and really own the solution. I mean, he's a very very downward focused commander in terms of trusting and empowering leaders below him to help create change.
It's so neat to hear you talk about that, especially knowing the jobs that you've done and the leadership roles that you've filled and the mindset that I'm sure you've had in those roles. I want to ask you also about Admiral McRaven. You spent some time with him. I wonder if you could just tell us too, when you kind of cross paths with him and some of the things that stood out to you most about his leadership.
So I think Bill and I first met when I was a colonel and maybe at the Ranger Regiment, and he was, obviously been in naval special warfare, and he came back to JSOC as a 1-star, and we had some interaction because I had went off to the 82nd. So about that time, so probably the 2006, 2007 timeframe when we started interacting here, and then I obviously had a chance to serve with him on a couple different occasions at JSOC when he was a SOCOM commander and I was a JSOC commander, and so I've got to know him quite well. But again, you look for these traits in different people, and I think leadership is a lot about watching what other people do, and learning from the mistakes they made, but also learning from the good skills that they exhibited. And one of the many fine skills about Bill McRaven is this ability just to exude confidence in virtually everything you do, and particularly in the hard things. I mean, think about this for a moment, Cal. Bill McRaven's the guy who can convince a president in an election year to put it all on the line for imperfect intelligence, as good as it was never 100%, and put it all on the line and go for it against and get bin Laden. He did that. And I think he did that largely because he was confident in his own abilities. He was confident in the force, and by having that confidence, he made everybody else more confident that yes, we can do this. We can do this. We can manage the risk. We can orchestrate this, and we can be successful. And I think it's just a wonderful lesson in the power of confidence and the power of trusting your people and trusting yourself to do and to overcome hard obstacles and challenges and succeed on the other side. So of the many qualities that are associated with Bill McRaven, to me, that's the one that really stands out.
So if we were sitting in a room with Admiral McRaven right now, what is it about him that projects confidence? Is it he's articulate, he speaks well? I'm just kind of curious in a more specific way, what do you mean when you say confidence as it relates to Admiral McRaven?
So, let me tell you a little story here. So, when I replaced him at SOCOM, I was promoted from 3-star to 4-star officer, and I obviously had a great relationship with him, and I was having the opportunity to succeed him again in a really great organization. And as part of my preparation for this, I actually, we sat down and had a conversation, and I asked him, "Hey, what advice do you have for somebody that's about to, go from 3-star to 4-star? What's your advice for me?" And of course, I was expecting, okay, this is it. This is the burning bush now. It's really I'm going to learn everything. And what he said to me was startling, but it was very typical Bill McRaven. What he said was this. He said, "I'll tell you what, Joe." He said, "Here's some advice for you. Call every 4-star that by their first name on the first day you're promoted." And I'm going, at first I thought, what are you talking about? And then I thought about it for a second, but what he's basically telling you is be confident. You've arrived, you have a place at the table, so act like it. Be, that to me is the ultimate, one of the ultimate examples of confidence. Be confident in yourself and the things that you're doing. You're in this position because you're ready for it. People have chosen you for this. So be confident in what you're doing with that. So, a very simple little statement right there, but it was really, really powerful for me. And it took me a second to think through it. And that's what he was telling me to do. And I think it's quintessential Bill McRaven.
I love that. And it makes me think of kind of my view of humility. And it's not thinking of yourself less, but not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. And I think Patrick Lencioni talks a lot about that, this idea of, knowing your strengths, knowing that you do bring something to the table. Obviously you have weaknesses just like everyone, but a willingness to kind of lean into your ability. And obviously if you're in that position, you should have some confidence in who you are in your team. So that's such a wonderful insight. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to ask you about Secretary Mattis. Obviously most everyone knows of him. You've had some opportunities to work directly with him. And the same thing, I'm just curious if you could tell us kind of how you all crossed paths and what really stood out to you about Secretary Mattis.
So the first time I met Secretary Mattis, it was Major General Mattis, and he was commanding the Marine Corps Combat Development Center down at Quantico. And I was a brand new one-star, and we were testifying together over in Congress on the IED problem. I was representing kind of the Army in the Joint Task Force, and he was there in kind of his Marine Corps role. And so that was really one of the first interactions that I had with them. And then I had a number of opportunities to work for him before. Certainly when he was the CENTCOM commander, I was a JSOC commander, I was a task force commander for him. And so got to know him and worked with him very, very closely with that. And then, of course, at the time that he was the Secretary of Defense and I was the CENTCOM commander, I got to obviously very, very close with him. So a lot of great interaction with Secretary Mattis. And I think there's a litany of great qualities that you can talk about. But, what I would just share with the audience here, with you and with the listening audience is that, the one thing I took away from him that I never forgot was this idea of command and feedback. And I'll explain a little bit. So when General Mattis was retiring from CENTCOM, I invited him to come and talk to all the commanders at JSOC, and we weren't sure he was going to be able to make it up to Fort Bragg, so we actually moved our whole commanders conference down to Tampa. So we made it easy for him because we wanted him to come and talk to us, and so he did. And he came and we had a wonderful discussion. But he articulated at this time this idea of command and feedback, and the discussion is kind of this: is that oftentimes as military officers we think about command and control, but the fact of the matter is we command, we influence, we provide direction, that type of stuff. But there isn't a lot that we're controlling in the environments in which we're operating in. And so his consensus was that what you have to have is you have to have commanders who command, but you also have to have these feedback loops between different levels of command. That's this constant flow of information back and forth that is always informing the situation and keeping people informed. And when you're working through challenging and uncertain situations, this is how you get people aligned. I tell you, that really resonated with me, and it resonated with everybody in the room. And it really became, from that point forward, it became the foundation for how I tried to interact in organizations that I was part of. And I shamelessly borrowed his phrase of command and feedback and tried to implement it and do it, because I thought it made so much sense that if you could just get people aligned, if you could get the people below you to have a common understanding, a common awareness of what's going on, a common expectation of how you're going to act, and then you could do that with people above you, boy, then you really got something. Then you can start to connect the dots, and you can ride this wave that occurs as you're dealing with uncertain and turbulent situations, because people are kind of aligned. They know what's going on. They have good situational awareness. They know what you're thinking. They know how you're going to act. So that I really believe in this idea of command and feedback, and it's something that I, from the first time I heard Secretary Mattis articulated that way, something I really grabbed onto. So, that was the main thing that I took away. He always emphasized, even as the Secretary of Defense, it was really important. And I used to send him voluminous weekly updates. I admit, that's how he was a reader. And so we tried to optimize that for him. But the whole idea was making sure, again, no guessing about what Votel and CENTCOM are doing. Here's what we're doing. We want to be aligned with you. So to me, this is a really important concept. It's one that I continue to try to practice now as I'm kind of out of the military, but it certainly was one that influenced me then.
Practically speaking, how do you do that? So I envision giving guidance, but how do you create a feedback, whether it's a culture or a sequence where people just expect like, hey, they're going to give you feedback? I'm just wondering if you could give for the leaders out there, because I love that concept. The next question I go to is, what practically might a leader go do in their organization to start to apply that?
Sure, there are a number of things. I mean, I think you got to have an appreciation for unit culture and how the unit thinks about itself, and kind of what's its inner drive and what gets it done. It's important to understand that. In the soft community, we kind of think of ourselves as quiet professionals. That idea kind of pervades the organization. So organizational culture, I think, is an important part of it. Relationship building is an important part of it. And so, the more senior I became as a leader, as a commander, the more time was invested in building relationships. I think really, by the time I finished as a CENTCOM commander, it would not be an overestimate to say that, between 70, 75, maybe 80% of my time was spent in relationships, maybe even a little bit more than that. I mean, that's really what it was about, connecting to people and, just staying in contact and keeping them informed and understanding that. So relationship building is important. Trust building is important as well. And you've got to find ways to create mutual trust between different levels of command. People below you have to trust that you have their back. And likewise, people above you have to trust that they're not going to get surprised by you. These are, I think, really important concepts. You got to be a great communicator. I said in jest here, you got to be an effective communicator, I should say. Not everybody's a great communicator, but you can be an effective communicator. I said in jest here that you got to, that I used to send voluminous updates every week to Secretary Mattis. Well, that's a way he communicated. He was a reader. He read history. He didn't have any problem. Every now and then you'd get a little complaint about your lengthy update last week, but I got to tell you what, he read it every time and commented on it, and usually did it all within about 24 hours. So that's the feedback loop right there. So you got to do all those things kind of simultaneously. I think you gotta reinforce culture. You got to trust build. You got to strengthen relationships. You got to be an effective communicator. You got to work the feedback loops all the time. And this isn't a sometime thing. It's an all the time thing. You got to be always trying to make people up and down aligned with what's happening out there. And when you can do that effectively, and I don't, and again, it's always a struggle. You're never going to be perfect. But we're striving for progress in all of this. And when you can do that, I really think it really helps the organization, and it helps the chain of command. And to me, it's the embodiment of command and feedback.
One more follow-up on that. So let's say in your organizations, would you tell people, hey, I want you to give me feedback every week, or I want you to give me feedback every couple of days? Or was it kind of in the context of the relationship, it was just obvious how often you wanted feedback? Yeah,
it's much more in the context of the relationship. All my subordinate commanders sent normal reports. They called, we talked, we had battle rhythm events and stuff like that. But it became a culture. I think we were trying to create a culture where we were sharing information that it was seen as beneficial to keep your higher headquarters informed, and likewise, to keep the lower headquarters informed. There was an incident that took place in Syria in I want to say it was in the spring of 2018. I may be off a little bit here. There was we were beginning the campaign had moved down into the lower Euphrates Valley, and we had a soft commander on the ground who was playing pretty good heads up ball, and he was picking up information that indicated that there was a kind of a large concentration of what appeared to be Russian, Syrian, maybe Iranian or Shia militia groups on the other side of the river who seemed to be kind of posturing to come across and penetrate through the area we were. And what he started picking up, and he started moving that information. He passed it up, and it got to me, and I took it to the chairman and the secretary and made sure they knew. And we did a variety of things. I mean, we even actually got the chairman at the time to call General Gerasimov to say, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And so we had this very good situational awareness of something's changing out here, and of course, in emphasizing that, you have all the authority you need to defend yourself and protect your troops and protect your organization here, and emphasizing self-defense aspects. And lo and behold, exactly what this young officer identified happened. This force attempted to come across, and he very quickly, because he knew he'd passed all this up, he responded properly, made decisions on the spot, harnessed ISR and fire support, and administered a pretty severe beatdown on this organization right here. I don't know that we ever know what the final BDA on this was. I mean, some of the numbers I've seen is somewhere between 150 to 200 fighters on the other side killed. But the fact that we were able to communicate up and down, I think, kept this from being an international incident. We'd actually done that, and we'd actually reached out to the Russians at multiple levels, and we had our chain of command all fully informed on this. And so, to me, that's a good example of how you do it. But people got to buy into it, and this young officer, clearly did.
That's great. Well, thanks for sharing all that. And I want to transition. This is a question that I'm just really curious about for you, because you've seen so many people as you've throughout your career. You've seen so many high performing people. So what qualities do you personally look for when you're looking for someone to join your team? So let's say me or someone else, I'm sitting in front of you in an interview or in some type of assessment. What are you looking for the most when you want to bring someone onto your team?
Yeah, I think the thing I'm most focused on is organizational fit. How does this person fit into the organization? And I think, to me, that's actually the most important piece. And I think you obviously are going to screen for other things, just other qualities and experience and competence, and those type of things come. But what I find is you find a lot of people that have all those kind of qualifications, and on paper are pretty well qualified for the positions that you're considering, and there probably are varying shades of gray between them. But what I think it really kind of comes down to is, how does this person fit into the organization? How will they support the culture of the organization? How will they interact with others? Will they be a team approach? Will they be a source of friction in the organization? Will they cause tension? Will they relieve tension? What's their general temperament here? To me, that's an important aspect. And then, how can they enhance the mission and objectives of the organization? By being part of the organization. And so, for me, Cal, it really does come down to, this idea of organizational fit. How does somebody fit into it?
Do you think that's something that you can find out through a traditional interview, or is it typically take more than something just like a sit down asking questions?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you can. I think as you move on, you get gain experience, and intuition counts for a lot, instincts count for a lot for me, and so I think you can get a lot out of that. Interestingly, one of the things that I've seen here and on the outside with one of the organizations that I work with here is actually including kind of an opportunity for somebody that you think is going to going to fit in the organization, actually have a session with his other contemporaries, his or her contemporaries in the organization, where they just kind of sit down, and then you can get a little feedback that way. I saw that done. I had never necessarily seen that before, but I thought it was an extraordinarily good process, and I think it helped us make some very, very good decisions about people coming into the organization. And I think it directly supported this idea of organizational fit. It's not delegating decision making to others, but getting other sources of input into your decision here. To me, that was really, really helpful.
You spent a lot of time in the special operations community, and that's not something that I've experienced firsthand. And obviously, a lot of people see on the movies what that looks like. A lot of people are interested in that. You have firsthand experience. I'm curious if you could just share with us what is it like behind the curtain? What is the special operations community like, and what do you think really sets them apart from some of the other organizations that we're probably maybe more familiar with in the traditional Army?
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question, and I'll caveat it just by saying this up front: is that I've had a chance to see a lot of organizations, special operations, and others, and there's a lot of great organizations out there. And being a special operations in SOCOM or being a SOF organization isn't just your guarantee that it's a great organization. Great organizations are the result of organizational culture and the result of great leaders who keep the organization moving forward in a positive manner, and great people who believe in the organization. So those kind of ingredients are really important everywhere. And I've really had the opportunity to see superior organizations who were miles away from SOCOM, but they were spot on for that. So I just want to say that up front. I think one of the things that I always appreciated about the SOF community is that the members of the SOF community had a very refined understanding of their culture, the culture of the organization. What were the values? What were the beliefs? What were the principles that kind of drove the organization? What was the internal engine that kind of drove the organization, and how they approached challenges that they were dealing with, and how they saw their role in things. And to me, this was very refined in the special operations community, and it gave people a real sense for how they fit into things and the role that they played. And I think the example that I would just kind of share with you is that from my time at JSOC as the commander there, we really kind of thought of ourselves as accelerants, as accelerators, if you will. That it was our job to kind of see what was happening out there and then start moving forward with it. And in the process of moving forward on something, and an opportunity is to bring people along with you and help create momentum and and inertia as you're moving forward on these things. And so that was really kind of an aspect of the organization. We all kind of thought of ourselves that, hey, if we don't move forward on something, then maybe we'll miss the opportunity. So we really kind of thought of ourselves as being able to do that. And in many regards, I think we were successful in doing that. So I think that the first thing here is that they really believed in the organizational culture of the organization. I think the second thing is that really great organizations, particularly in the SOF community, really understand and enforce high standards in the organization. This is really important. I mean, the fact that most of our special operations organizations have an assessment process that people go through. You don't normally just show up and become a member of the organization. You go through something that that is a demonstration of standards, is a demonstration of qualifications, and then that's kind of that's one of the key pieces of your entry into the organization. I think that's a really important aspect of the special operations community, and I think it helps engender trust among members and confidence in other members in the organization that you've been through a kind of a common process to get there, and that frankly that assessment is a continuous process. And it's one thing to get there. I remember when I was the regimental commander, and we'd go to the graduations of new RIP students that were coming into the Sergeant Major, Wally Rackow, would always say to them, it said, the easy part, you just completed the easy part, getting your beret. The hard part is keeping it. And that's so true. And that good organizations are self-policing, and they enforce standards, and they keep things moving forward. So, to me, those were two things that really stood out about SOF organizations that I really, really liked. And while, I'm talking about them in the uniqueness of special operations, I think I'm very certain there are other organizations who aren't SOCOM that do that. And I think these are really characteristics of great organizations.
What did you do to keep yourself sharp? So you led for 40 years and continue to lead. Even after retiring from the military, any tips for the leaders out there just on sustaining yourself for that long and keeping yourself able to operate at such a high level?
Yeah, I'd offer a couple of thoughts here for you. One, I think, developing some good habits that you can follow every day, I think are really important. I mean, if you're in the military, you generally learn to do your PT early in the day, and because that's the one time you control. But I think developing habits for fitness, taking care of yourself, are really important. Developing habits for reading, for how you get your information every day. I still today have kind of call through the different news aggregators and other things that I go to get my information, and I generally try to do that early in the day, so I kind of have that at the ready for whatever comes next. Connecting with people, and making, being routine and those kinds of things, I think are really, really, really important. So, I think the first thing is just don't be afraid to establish habits for yourself that you can repeat all the time. For me, that was really important. It was so important that, as the JSOC and SOCOM and CENTCOM commander, I used to have a rule with my personal staff. I called it, the 10.5 hour rule. And that was at the end of the day, whatever the end of the day was, 10.5 hours later, we'll start the next day. And what I was trying to do was send a message that, hey, I got to have time to clean off email and work. I got to have time to eat. I got to have time to, do PT, and I got to have time to sleep. And, through some convoluted process, which I would have trouble explaining to you right now, I came up with this thing of 10.5 hours. So I don't care when we finish. We finish at 8:00, we finish at midnight. 10.5 hours when we start the next day. And to me, that was kind of my way of enforcing the habits, the routine, if you will, that kind of, kept you rejuvenated and kept you informed and kept you healthy, and took care of, sustaining yourself. And so, I think you have to, that was kind of my little approach to it. Every time I had to explain that to every group of new aides and XOs and things I had, they all are going, "What the hell are you talking about?" And then they understood it when they saw how it worked. But you got to kind of enforce that kind of stuff, and routines are important, and you got to kind of enforce those things. I think the other thing, Cal, that I would share with you is that you have to take time to think. And, when you get into leadership positions, really at all levels, but, especially in the context of what we're talking about at senior levels here, there's a lot going on, and you're always find yourself in situations where you're having to make decisions and act, and you're responding to things. And oftentimes if you don't create opportunities to think, then, then I think you're missing something. And this isn't, sometimes, some people can kind of shut their door and kind of put their feet up and hands behind their head and think great thoughts at their desk. That was not me. What I tried to do was, in my own rhythm of things that I did in the organization, was create opportunities for thinking. And I did these by doing deep dives with different parts of the staff, or maybe just having conversations with different parts of the staff. So just as an example, at CENTCOM, every week on Tuesday afternoon, we had kind of a J2 deep dive. And sometimes I would say, hey, here's a topic that I want to know more about. And other times, and actually more times than not, they would select things that they thought would be of interest to me and that they wanted to talk about. And we would have a discussion about that. With the J5 group that I had a wonderful group of civilian thinkers in there at CENTCOM who augmented, but were partnered with the military officers we have there. And we just come in and talk about plans. We talk about different things that we were doing. And it was what it was, Cal. It was an opportunity to have a discussion about something without the burden of having to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And so we could just be informed. We could just talk about this kind of thing. And these were so important to me, and I really look forward to them. And, they went anywhere from an hour to sometimes to 90 minutes. We used to bring people from the intelligence community down to CENTCOM and just have a discussion about different things. And they'd bring people that brought a lot of depth and understanding of the thing. And it was just a way of just kind of immersing yourself and getting deeper in things, and really kind of forcing yourself to think through things without the burden of having to make a decision. Because the burden of making the decision oftentimes drives leaders to be expedient, to look for shortcuts, to look for the bottom line. And oftentimes you miss a lot when that's always your approach. So, to me, these were really important. And I think they really support this idea of command and feedback, frankly. I mean, about people getting aligned. I mean, I really felt at CENTCOM, my staff and I were pretty well aligned. We didn't agree on everything, but we were within an acceptable range of alignment here, where we basically, understood things about the same and had the same awareness. And that was really, really important. So, those two things, habit building and enforcement, and then making time to think, I think are really, really important things that kind of sustain you over time.
That's so good. What did you label those meetings? How did you communicate to the staff, we're not making a decision, we just are going to come and either discuss a topic or think about something, wrestle with something?
I think we just, I didn't have a whole lot of imagination on this. So, it was just deep dives, or
okay.
We're going to have just a session with the J5. We're going to talk about things. I don't know that we had any particular catchy name to it. That's just what it was. And what I tried to make clear up front is that, hey, listen, I know we got a battle rhythm here. We know how to make decisions. And at those times, I got it. If we got to do that, we'll do that. But what I really need is I need the opportunity to have discussions, get a lot of viewpoints, ask questions, and get deep understanding. And I need to do it without having to worry about, at the end of this, making a damn decision. We just need to have the discussion. It was really important to me.
That's really insightful. And I want to ask you about your routine, your habits a little bit. So do you have a pretty strict morning routine, or is there some variability in the morning routine? In the 10.5, is there some flexibility?
I'm like many. I'm a creature of habit, and so I kind of do this. I kind of do the same thing every day. I'm an early riser. When our dog was alive, we would go for a little walk, and I'd get coffee, and I'd go in, and I'd usually, as a CENTCOM commander or SOCOM commander, I'd go through the reports and emails and things that came in overnight. And, I got it down so I could do it in, 30, 35, 40 minutes. And then once that was done, then I'd go off and do my PT, whatever I was going to do there. And I usually spent somewhere between 60 and 75 minutes doing that, and then I got cleaned up and had breakfast usually at my home, and then went to work. And then even when I got there were some very set things that I wanted. So I tried to get in the office about the same time. Sometime usually CENTCOM ended up between 7:15 and 7:30. So I'm an early riser, so I'm up by 4:15, 4:30 usually. I mean, that's probably not atypical for people in this line of business. As you know, and so when I got to the office is like 7:30, 8 o'clock is my time, and I was just kind of getting myself set in my office. And then at 8 o'clock, the Intel book came in, and I always had an analyst, and usually the J2 and one or two others came in, and we had about 20, 25 minutes to go through the highlights of kind of the classified stuff, and then. After that, I had, and I did this at CENTCOM, and I wish I'd have started it earlier, but I brought in my public affairs officer, I brought in my web ops officer, and I brought in, kind of the information operations synchronizer, if you will, on my staff. So 3 individuals who came in, and we talked about those things. I got a little update on what was happening on the web. I got a little update that was happening on when the public affairs thing, and then I had my integrator right there, and she kind of helped me make sense of all of that. And so now I'm set. And so now it's about 8:45, and I'm ready to go. And then the day starts, and then you're off to the thing. And I usually tried to make sure I had a break at lunch, so I could get myself caught up and make sure I was ready for the afternoon. And the afternoon, then you kind of scheduled a kind of a deliberate stop time, especially when you're in office hours there. Usually tried to be done by 5 or 5:30, and then kind of closed out, and then by 6 or a little bit after, try to be out of the office when you could, and that. So the routine, I think, is important. It was important to me, at least, so I think it might be a little bit a little anal retentive in some of this, but frankly, it worked for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, just hearing you talk through it, I also think it's probably good for the team too. There's some predictability built into that.
Absolutely is. They kind of knew what was going to happen, and what the expectation was. And so I think it does help those around you as well.
A couple just points of curiosity from what you just said. So are you pretty strict about what time you get to bed? Getting up so early?
Yeah, and I think we are usually somewhere between 9 and 10 usually.
Okay.
I think if my wife had her brothers, we'd all be in bed by about 8:15 every night. She likes to go to bed early, so I'm blessed that way. But yeah, I try to get down by usually if I'm home now, I'm sometimes between 9 and 10 we're usually done, and because there's always exceptions in all of this, but yeah, I think it's important to have a regular time too.
And then the 60 minutes or so of PT, do you have kind of a go-to type of workout? Are you more of a runner, CrossFit, mix?
Yeah, I would say I'm a runner, and that's always kind of been my base thing. I've now kind of cut back on that, and so I do bike, and I got a couple other things. I got a rowing machine and some other things, so I can mix that up, and I kind of have a routine in terms of that. So I usually every other day I'm running, and then I do a lot of biking on the other days, static bike, and then I kind of throw in some of that, and I do light weights. I'm a shadow of the man that I previously was back when I was great. Back when you're bulletproof as a captain and major and everything else. To me, it's about overall fitness. And again, to me, it's less about the workout and more about the workout up above your neck, about clearing your brain and thinking about what's ahead of you. And I just find I do a lot of my best thinking and during that period.
Well, sir, I know we're running out of time here. I wanted to ask you just a few kind of lightning round questions if you have the time.
Sure, absolutely.
So the first one I have is your top marriage or relationship advice.
Yeah, so that's a good one. So my wife always says, usually says it to me, says everybody's entitled to their own ridiculous opinion, and so I guess my top marriage advice is this: pick your battles carefully. There are very few things that. Very, very few, if any, things that require the nuclear option, and most things can be resolved with time and/or discussion. So pick your battles, very judiciously here in terms of things that you're really gonna make a stake over, and make marriage, like many other things, is about compromise. It's about moving forward together in that, and that's I think that's been an important aspect of our marriage.
That's so good. Top parenting advice.
Yeah, another good one. All kids are different, our two boys, best friends growing up, great young men. Each all had different paths in terms of how where they went. One went right through college. One, took a longer path through it. And what I came to recognize with him was that in some cases kids aren't ready to go to. They aren't just aren't ready to go to college right out of high school, and in his case, it would have been good to let him do something else. He eventually, got a degree, and it's a great job, and is doing very, very well here. But everyone's a little bit different, and as a parent, I wish I had appreciated that better, more clearly at the time, and I've come to learn that over time. And so I think you have to recognize the differences in your own children.
That's really insightful. All right, sir, last one I have for you. Best piece of advice that you've received over the years?
Well, I've actually told you that already. It's the advice from Bill McCraven in terms of that, and I think that's pretty good advice. But I think a common theme, and I'll belabor that. But I think another common theme is that I've gotten from several is don't forget what got you to where you are. It is about being a good leader. It is about being responsive to people. It is about taking care of people. Don't lose that don't lose that focus as you continue to move higher and higher in positions of rank and responsibility here. That don't lose sight of the things that have made you successful, and that people have valued in you and appreciated about you as you move forward. And I unfortunately have seen some leaders that have lost sight of that along the way. And I think it's an important reminder. It was a very important reminder of people to me, because you often wonder, man, here I am, I'm wearing stars, and how did I get here? How did people say, you got here by the things that you've done, that you did well along the way, that inspired confidence in people to kind of help you keep moving forward. Don't lose sight of those things.
Sir, that's amazing. And sir, thank you so much on behalf of the audience and all the listeners out there who are enjoying this conversation and enjoying these insights. Thank you so much for spending an hour of your time with us. I know you're a busy man, and this has just been a masterclass on leadership, and your perspectives are awesome, and excited to watch as you continue to lead at Ben's and follow your journey, sir.
Thanks, Cal. Great to be with you. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for the invitation again. And my best to you and to all our viewers.
Hey, friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. 40 years of leadership experience shared with us. There were a lot of important takeaways for me. General McChrystal's ability to make a good organization even better by staying relevant, not resting on his laurels. Admiral McCraven's confidence, that ability to know and trust yourself and your team, and that you belong where you are. Secretary Mattis's command and feedback through establishing feedback loops. General Votel described that practically putting that command and feedback into place required a focus on relationship and trust building. He talked about how he spent 75% of his time as the commander of CENTCOM in relationship building, a focus on culture and being an effective communicator up and down. I also loved his focus on building some good daily habits and him being consistent with those daily habits. And I loved his idea of the 10.5 hour rule. So good. If you got something out of today, I just want to ask you to do one thing. Hop on Apple Podcast, leave a review, letting me know what you thought, and I'll share that with General Votel, and I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. I can't thank each of you enough for listening, for being part of this community. Thank you so much for putting in the time to grow, to become a better leader, because when you become a better leader, people love to follow you. People love to be part of your team, and you make the world a better place. Remember that life is short, so let's go out today, live an intentional life. Let's go make it count.